year, making old men proud of you. Forget about the tears on the level. See me eye to eye. Stand up like a man, even from the other side. On the level.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another MoGraph MoCast. I'm Matt. Joining me this week, the amazing, the super talented. You've seen him all over the place. He was at Camp MoGraph. He's been on all the podcasts, and he's runs an amazing studio, Mr. PJ Richardson from Laundry.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
How are you, sir?
Well.
Good to have you here. Super excited. It's gonna be a really good show. We're gonna talk some stuff. We're gonna do some things. We're gonna have a lot of fun. If you got questions, throw it up in the chat. But first off, I want to thank our sponsors. Our sponsor, Otoy, you know them, you love them. They are the makers of Octane Render and the Render Network. With Octane, you can create super photorealistic renders incredibly fast. And for those renders that need a little extra push of power, the Render Network has you covered. Render Network allows you to render your Octane and Redshift frames in a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost of the other cloud rendering services. And I'm super excited. I've mentioned this before, but RenderCon is coming up April 15th. If you're in the LA area or around there, come to RenderCon April 15th. You can use the promo code MoGraph to get a free ticket. The tickets are normally $99. We are super excited to be helping out with that. You can check it out at lu.ma, so lu.ma/RenderCon, and pick up your tickets there. They got some great presenters. It's going to be a full day of presentations, speakers, panels, and more. They've got Jules Urbach from Otoy and the Render Foundation. You know him, you love him. We've had him on the show before. He's going to talk future of Render, future of Octane. Also, Ari Emanuel, the CEO and founder of Endeavor. We've got Richard Karras, the VP and of GM Media and Entertainment over at NVIDIA. Rod Roddenberry, Gene Roddenberry's son, is going to be doing a panel on the Star Trek, which is fantastic. Super excited about that. And then Ahmad Mostique. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. But the founder of Stability AI and Intelligent Internet, they're all going to be speaking. We've also been talking about having some Octane people presenting and stuff like that. It's going to be a day full of fun, and yeah, you won't want to miss out. But use that promo code MoGraph for a free ticket. And also give a shout out to Otoy, and thanks for sponsoring the show and everything that we do over here at MoGraph. Now, on to PJ. PJ, how are you? How are things?
I'm good.
How's the weather?
How's everything?
It's good. It's all right. I'm going on 7 weeks with no projects and no work right now. You know, it's one of those things where it's like I'm trying to keep myself busy with other things, you know, that don't pay in order to hide myself from the existential dread of not having work.
Fair enough.
You know.
This game is such a feast or famine game.
It is. It really is.
Overload or none at all. It's like, can't it just be steady like our emotions want it to be?
Yeah, right. You know, and it's crazy because, like, you know, there's a few opportunities that have come up. You know, I've been looking for a job for the past few months and stuff like that. And, you know, me and my wife talk about this. There was like a teaching job for like an animation job. And I was like, you know, I could probably take that. But then it's one of those things where it's like, okay, if I get a freelance project, that pays my actual day rate and stuff like that, I could work for 3 or 4 months, because teaching doesn't pay anything. I could work 3 or 4 months on that project and make as much as a teacher would over an entire year. So as a freelancer, it's one of those tough, like, give and take things. It's like you're going to deal with these really dry times, but as soon as it gets profitable, it's like, okay, we don't have to worry anymore,
That's it. It's just navigating those ups and downs and in betweens. That's always the just the trickiest part.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm sure as a studio owner, you got to deal with it tenfold, because you've got employees and, clients you got to deal with and all that other crap. Yeah.
it's exactly the same thing. It's just at a different scale. The
Yeah.
proportions are different, but like the dynamics identical.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
And what's tricky about it is that it didn't used to be, kind of used to be that there'd be consistent pockets of the year every year over year that would do that,
Yeah.
and you could kind of plan for it. And then ever since COVID, it's just been like there doesn't seem to be a huge logic to it that we can spot.
yeah. Yeah. I did notice that. It's like, like you said, COVID was a huge determining factor. It's like it used to be, at least for me as a freelancer, I'd have a pretty busy time, like September to December. That would be like my feast. And then January, February, finally getting into March would start picking up again, but then you'd also have a lull during the summer, It's like, right after COVID, it was like 2021. It was like, it was all over the place. We had a really slow December, but a crazy January, February.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. So, I got a couple of headlines here. Let me hop into this first one, because this one will be fun. Gotta do the animation first. For those who watch the Oscars, Flow, the animated won Best Animated Feature. Really excited about this. It's kind of like really exciting for our industry, because the entire movie was animated in Blender. It's I haven't actually seen it yet. I hear good things about it, but it's really cool to see something that is open source and free, for artists, being used in a way that is finally being recognized, in, on a massive scale like the Oscars.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. It's like it's kind of the best case scenario. It's like democratized, free 3D, people passionate, people diving in, learning it, and not just learning it, but doing storytelling with it, and to be recognized at such a giant scale is pretty amazing, I think.
Yeah, totally. And they beat out Inside Out 2. I haven't seen it. I've seen clips. It's beautiful. I loved. They also beat out The Wild Robot, which I absolutely adored.
That movie was amazing.
It was.
Like, I saw it in the theater, and it's insane. But it just, I mean, they clearly they recognize on something beyond, or in partnership with technical.
Mm-hmm.
It was artistry, craft, storytelling, emotion, and it's amazing. Like, what could you? I'm sure there's people that are like, Blender, but like, I don't know. It's just cool.
And it kind of just it goes to show that you can have these massive scale teams, like ones who did Inside Out 2 or The Wild Robot or Wallace and Gromit that it was also up against, and you can have also a small scale studio that is working on free software and making a movie like this. It's incredible.
Well, one of the things that I love about, we won't go fully down this yet, but
Sure.
I'll just make the comparison to AI. But with Blender 2 is like, if the world is your oyster of talent, there's I've noticed in traveling a lot the past couple of years that there's restrictions, because what seems like a $70 subscription a month to us here that might as well be like 6 months rent for someone working in wherever, somewhere far away with less economic access.
Yeah, for sure.
So then it's like, but if they can download free software and find their passion and dig into that, and then at the next step get to like a film feature level and have artists find them,
yeah,
it's amazing. Like, that's like that's like a dream. And so I think this encapsulates that, where it sort of breaks the rules of, or the barrier of entry, let's just say, of you have to be a my artist in Hollywood to
Yeah.
work at Pixar or whatever it is. So it's a real nice kind of like feather in the hat for that regard, for talent worldwide.
Yeah. And even if you're not using Blender on a daily basis or for like your career or something, like it's amazing to get those, the initial introduction to 3D and animation and a lot of those principles down, as a student and stuff like that. As free software, because we're relatively about the same age. When I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but I know for me, when I was getting into the industry, it was like if you couldn't afford it, you just pirated it, And it's like I needed C4D to be able to learn, I just pirated it. But then you've got now options, you've got like GIMP for Photoshop, in placement of Photoshop, and you've got Blender in place of like Cinema 4D or Maya, and it's like
you're exactly right in the sense that it also gets you thinking and learning about basic principles,
Mhm.
and particularly for the more technical minded, they could bounce between programs relatively easily,
Yeah.
and or use it as a starting point to then, trade up to Houdini, or maybe not. Maybe they just stay there and they just make awesome shit. Like
Yeah.
that's what's awesome about it. I think it's incredible. Like the only reason I even haven't dove into Blender is just because of a busy schedule, but I don't see any reason not to. It's purely like, it's also like I kind of come back to the same thing on this. Like we run into this all the time with Cinema 4D with character animation, where the character animation's okay-ish, but there's just not very many character animators out there.
Yeah.
And so if Blender is free and opens up the landscape for a lot more artists to get good at a particular corner of it,
Yeah.
like why would anybody say no to that from a creativity perspective,
Yeah. And over at Laundry, y'all are specifically, are y'all a C4D studio, or are you using Maya, Houdini, all the other stuff?
C4D heavily, but Maya mainly for character animation and product render stuff,
Mhm.
or product animation stuff, and then Houdini for kind of a lot of things, mostly particles, I would say,
Yeah.
and like kind of more complete, same as everybody else, more complex geometry stuff.
For sure. And have you seen, have there been any talks over at the studio about maybe exploring Blender as an option? Just curious.
Not really, but I'm always the one to kind of try it first.
Yeah.
Have everybody freak out and get mad at me, and then eventually slowly
I get that.
find its way in there. So it's on my mind for sure. Like I know some friends of mine at Future Deluxe, who's a studio I just absolutely adore, starting to poke around and play with it in their workflow, and mainly I think mainly experimenting with doing, just getting all of them to kind of blend and talk to each other. And I think that's really interesting to me, is not just being like more like purist about it, of just being like, okay, we're now only Blender and no more Cinema 4D. It's just sort of like, let's try and make some cool shit like in there, and see where that goes. So I'm gonna poke around. I have a destiny approaching with the Blender Donut tutorial sometime here in the future.
There's so much better tutorials. Don't give the guru your money.
I gotta do it for the people.
Yeah, when I freelanced over at Already Been Chewed for about 5 months last year, and it was really cool because, you had a bunch of different people using a bunch of different software. You had some people, you had a very heavy Houdini group there, and then people were bringing that into C4D, or for some of our modelers, they were doing stuff heavily in Blender. Render or modeling all the stuff in Blender and then getting it over to us, or to another artist to fix that in Substance Painter. And then we bring it all into, Cinema 4D. And so it was really cool because we weren't sticking just with one program, and also you didn't have to pay the extra money for the additional seats of C4D just to model,
Yeah, that's exactly my point of just mixing it all up. Like I saw a talk in Sao Paulo a couple months ago where they how did I forget the order. They went like LiDAR scan in Polycam, into Touch Designer, into Houdini, into Blender,
Jeez.
and out to like Resolve to do some like visual distortion on or something. And I was like, that's it.
Yep.
That's like just no rules. Like
Yep.
just
That person is overqualified. The person who can
yeah,
set that
yeah.
up.
No, these guys were wizards. It was mental.
Oh, that's funny. All right, let's go into our second headline, and on the on the cusp of all the layoffs over in Technicolor shutting down. Autodesk just announced that they're going to lay off like 1,350 people around, which is 9% of their workforce. And the reason for that, and I'm a little sour about, is they want to focus more on some of the AI things and AI initiatives and all that other stuff. And it's like, okay, I get it, but there's AI is cool, but it's not there yet. I don't think. I don't know.
Yeah, all right. Let's get into
Let's get into it. Yeah.
I agree. I think it has. You know what AI is to me? I know that we're all, depending on who you ask, a lot of people are pretty scared about
Yeah.
it. And for certain very, very procedural jobs, or roles, I could say, I could totally see that.
Mhm.
Like Roto, it continues to be like less and less and less, and now it's automated, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But the way we use it, and we use AI in every which way quite a bit, is I kind of look at it like the MoGraph tool in Cinema 4D. Like, could you use Cinema 4D without the MoGraph stuff? Absolutely. But it's a piece that helps make some pretty interesting shit.
Yeah.
And you still need the rest of Cinema 4D. That's how AI is to me. Like we use it as an add-on and a corporation and do what we already do, and it amplifies things. It helps us find creative, unexpected stuff, but it's not taking over, and we have no reason to just only do AI either.
Yeah.
Which I think is awesome, because it adds a new twist or just a speed up thing to a lot of different parts of our workflow that either lets us get creative a lot faster or get through the boring shit a lot faster.
Yeah. I agree. I'm curious, so this is a question that I had written down for you, and since we're on the AI topic, as I'm going through like Instagram or TikTok or whatever, I'm seeing people experiment with it, or you see like, oh, here's a baby version of all the characters of The Office, right? And it's all done with AI and Luma Labs or whatever. But it's like, we're now being like super just like drenched by AI stuff, It's like, with that, how does a person stay relevant in our industry when everyone else is being overwhelmed by AI, Because it may just be everyone thinks, oh, this is, you posted a cool render, you spent a week on it, that's just AI. AI could do that in a day,
Yeah, let's see. There's a lot of parts to that, and I have a very, very, I think, strong perspective. Let me see how to frame this thought.
Sure.
So, backstory is we worked on a project a long time ago. It was we basically animated and filmed a 3-hour course for University of Phoenix, and one of the teachers was this guy named PJ Richardson, who's the head of business at Harvard, and he gave one of the talks. And his specialty was business innovation. Mm-hmm. Long story short, he pointed out, statistically, without fail, businesses, even creative businesses and technologies, when they're in innovation, start off super niched, where not very many people can do them. It's new, it's fresh, and ultimately very valuable. But the more that people could use the tool or create with something or the more that the business is needed, the more it went down in value. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the exact same thing with AI, where the more it's out there, the easier it is to do, the more common it's going to be. And while we all might think like, oh, I'm never going to make that cool render, there's billions of them, and it devalues it because it's so common and easy to do. And the reason I bring that up is because, let's just put this in the commercial MoGraph side of things. clients always want something unique and or something that no one else is really doing.
Hmm.
So if everybody's doing AI art, yeah, great. Yeah, I'm not worried about that as long as we all come at it from a new, fresh perspective, which is our job. It's always been our job well before AI, is to be unique and memorable. The other part of it too is that on the business side, for us at least, we have to make exquisite work with or without AI. But the major component to us keeping busy, and I think any other studio or artist, is the relationships too.
Hmm.
Like, do we get along with said person? Are they friends? You know, on a work level, do they trust us to figure out, deliver something, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why I don't worry about on either the business or the artistry side what other someone else is doing on with AI and Instagram. And then the other giant part of it is just the algorithms. Like,
Hmm.
just because we see a bunch of AI on because our algorithms are showing us the same thing we're already looking at over and over doesn't necessarily mean that's truly the landscape. And so I know to not trust that side of it all that much because it's like, okay, well, sure, but so I hope that makes sense. But
Yeah.
it's and then ultimately, like, I think at purely an artistic like level for all of us as artists, the problem with AI is sometimes even with the coolest of renders, if it doesn't have the heart in it or the taste or the curation, it's dead in the water.
Yeah.
Like, I always joke, like, of all the things you can make with AI, why in the world would you just make another Nike logo? And you see that on LinkedIn all the
Yeah.
time, and you're just
That's funny.
so
I
it's
I have noticed. So there's a very specific look and feeling with some of these, some of these AI video stuff, and like the quality is getting fantastic, but
yeah.
it's like you notice the people, like anytime you have a person, they don't blink. It's a dead stare the entire time, and I think especially with AI people, you're going to run into the same thing that we ran into, with like metahumans or something like that, where there's this uncanny valley that people are going to be able to notice that something just isn't right. The stuff that they were doing with like deep fakes and de-aging stuff, I felt like that was a whole lot better than some of the more AI driven like video character people,
Yeah.
and just it felt more human because you were basing
I
everything
think
off
the
of human
metahuman
emotion.
the metahuman thing is a perfect analogy. Is it just it's like almost gets there, but then it becomes still not particularly usable because it's unless it's where AI is incredible is when it gets ironic when you're like when you're making fun of the errors or whatever it is and that's some of my favorite stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah. 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 Are y'all implementing any like AI video stuff or anything to like,
Mhm.
help with processes, or
Yeah, a ton of different ways. Like we use AI upresing. I'm doing something right now. I'm doing an XR stage. Actually, tomorrow we're filming it, and
is that the stuff you
it
were posting
was
on Instagram?
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
rad.
It's sick. We're doing all the visuals and concept for a Linkin Park music
Oh,
videos
that's
tomorrow.
fun.
So yeah, it's really fun. And so we did these C40 and Redshift renders and then we put it into an ecto rectangular. I always mess that word up. Setting that goes on a XR stage, but they're 12K outputs, so we use Topaz to go from 6K to 12K because
Nice.
it sped up our render time massively.
Yeah.
Um, we use AI. We use like Runway and Luma and Sora sort of sucks, but
Yeah.
mostly Luma and Runway. Runway to Roto a lot, and then Luma because the videos look really good. And
When
then we use like Midjourney for map paintings all the time.
Okay.
That's another one.
Cool. When you're using
Um,
Runway for Roto, are you using it like for final? Are you doing it for rough and then sending it out or having a team do the actual final Roto?
it depends, but we'll most of the time we'll do like 80% of it from Runway and then go into like Roto Brush and After Effects and
Nice.
kind of clean it up.
Cool.
And that way, for anything like on social, like for clients, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like if it's something like heavy duty with motion blur, we'll send it overseas or something, and then
Yeah.
let the masters do their artistry on it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How's because the industry's been kind of up and down lately, you know, like we were talking about. And, you know, you know, after talking to Barton at ABC, you know, and it's like, it seems like a lot of the studios are pretty busy right now, you know?
Yeah.
And with that, you know, I've also seen, you know, following some of the motion design and VFX subreddits and stuff like that, it seems like the freelance work is down versus the studio work is up, you know? I'm curious if you've seen any of that.
That lines up exactly with what's happening with us, is that it's very, very, very busy. And we use a lot of freelancers at Laundry, actually. So I'm just trying to think of where, I mean, we did this well before COVID, but COVID was sort of the thing that took us really into this. But we work with artists pretty much all over the world. So it's I'd have to look at our roster right now, but it just is, we work with artists everywhere. So but we do lean heavily into our staff, because sometimes a job is really cool but not very well funded, and it's just cheaper to pull it off, and you have shorthand with staff. So we definitely go that way with it.
And there's y'all have 3 different studios, right? Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York.
Exactly.
And are y'all all working together, or is it more like, you know, New York has its own projects, San Francisco has its own projects, you know, or hey, we need some help, we know New York is better at like this particular thing, you know, or something like that?
It's both, because we did it for a very specific reason. Well, LA is kind of our biggest hub,
Sure,
and that's just sort of everything. But San Francisco, we set up because of all the tech work up there, and our teams focus mostly on that. And then New York, because we think that there's a nuance to the style work that's a little different than our West Coast team, so we have a team there for that too. And then we also, it's not formal, but we have European team as well that work in that time zone, and they kind of work more with New York. But to your point, like if one particular vertical or region is a little slow, then we just it's all just glued together, and we just work how we want to work, and put everybody on everything, mainly off of, not so much like on region, but by strength. Like our 2D teams, if there's like a 2D thing in LA, but they're, you know, look, we have an art director in Iceland, and if she wants to work on LA typography stuff because she loves it, let's do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're makes our producers and sometimes our creatives a little crazy, but like we work everywhere, every which way, all over the time zones.
And is the Los Angeles studio the original one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you, as a studio owner, at what point do you determine like, hey, let's branch off, let's go to this other city, you know? Because you see that happen a lot with like, you know, you guys and Buck, you know, there's like Buck Sydney, Buck New York, you know, and whatever. It's like, is it like one of the employees or the producers is like, hey, I'm moving, I'd love to set up shop there or something like that?
We're a bit more, like, I know Buck Sydney kind of happened that way, but we're a bit more strategic about it. We bet on, it's sort of the anti-internet approach where, yes, everybody can work everywhere via the internet, but what we found is that if you are local, there's a certain kind of trust with clients that they can come over, have a chat, look at something, and feel like you're there for when they need you. And so that's been our strategy for our studio growth that way, and it works for us at least.
And do you just go ahead?
Oh, I was gonna say, the thing that also kind of plays to that strength is that we're more of we work with generalists, but our mindset's more of a specialist approach, where it's like, if we're doing tech work, explainer videos, motion branding in the Bay, let's build an ecosystem that knows that world inside and out, so that we can't just do it, but that we're experts at it, and that we can, you know, with the teams that work on it, so that there's trust and shorthand to to be able to deliver. Because ultimately, and I know this is like the businessy side of it, but like trust is sort of the underbelly of every vertical that we work in.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. I've never thought about it that way, but it's like, yeah, you see LA, you see New York, you see San Francisco. Those are three very different dynamics of like, of companies and stuff there. And they're all expecting something different.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, I'll be completely transparent. We lost a lot of pitches to get to that point to be like, all right, we got to examine this. And I'm seeing one of the chats from Jen Van
Yeah.
Horn, and I agree with her. I like to call us, we're like, Pharrell Williams explained this well in a podcast recently with Rick Rubin. I like to think that we're pluralists, where we specialize in a couple different things and try to do them as well as possible, but not everything.
Yeah.
That also applies to our markets.
Yeah. Yeah, you've heard the term, what is it? Jack of all trades, but master of none. But I love the second half of that no one ever talks about. Like, because when you say just those two lines, it makes it sound like a jack of all trades is not the best thing. But it's jack of all trades, master of none, oftentimes better than a master of one. That's what it is.
Yeah. See?
So.
That's it.
Yeah. I do like that term, multi-specialist or pluralist instead of generalist. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a more positive vibe to it. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And we're always been, it's been scary at times, and sometimes it's harder to get in on certain projects when particular things are trending or particular people are trending. But I think our longevity has been because of taking a multi style approach to work. Because right now we're in 2D is pretty much been kind of a mainstay for us. 3D we're gigantic on right now. We do quite a bit of live action, and then like our XR and like out of home stuff we do a tremendous amount of sphere work. And so what it does for us as a studio is it's like no industry is always busy. So when one tapers, another one usually kind of pops up a little bit, or another two. So it helps us kind of keep the ship afloat.
Yeah, and you're, I mean, I would assume is having pluralists on board, you're able to handle those 3D, 2D, XR, all these different jobs as well.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it basically breaks down. It gets into stylistic nuance, but it more or less breaks down into 3D, 2D, and live action. And sometimes it's over.
Yeah. And do you have specialists, on the team where you're like, okay, this is live action, you're specifically handling this. This is 2D, this is more your realm. Yeah.
Exactly. We end up being, as creative directors, kind of more like the symphony conductors, so that we know how to play with all the instruments. But as artists, we're fairly focused on the specific areas.
The work that y'all are doing is fantastic, and
thank you.
I learned about laundry because, we were in talks with you for Camp MoGraph and stuff like that. And I have noticed a significant increase in your amount of speaking engagements since Camp MoGraph,
Yeah. Last year was a little crazy. Yeah. Very humbling. Yeah. It was incredible.
But it's the work that y'all are doing is just absolutely killer, and seeing, sometimes I do have to say, as sometimes you'll see an owner of a studio that's been around for a while, or someone who is more higher up in our industry where they kind of taper off from doing like actual work, or whatever. But what I have loved about you, PJ, following you on Instagram and stuff, is you are still like in the trenches, putting stuff together, just playing around and producing really beautiful stuff, stuff that any studio would be, like grateful to have or whatever. And it's super high quality. And I think that speaks really well to you and the studio, that you're not just allowing yourself to stagnate, you're keeping a high level of, you're keeping a high level, a high standard for yourself. I would expect that for the rest of the studio,
That's it. I mean, I love more than ever love doing this stuff. I love design. I love the research and the styles and trends and just being in all of that. And so I also just can't sit still. So like,
I get that.
And then also like, I mean this, like, it's not even an insecurity. I just mean this from purely an empathetic level. I just can't be that asshole that is giving creative direction. It's like, oh no, I don't want to see it or make it more organic or whatever.
Mhm.
Like I want to be able to go into Redshift and have a reasonable enough sense of how to do something to be able to have a real conversation with my collaborators.
Mhm.
And then when we do that, we can, there's a respect. It's sort of like game recognized game, but then also we can have much more unique conversations to figure out how to make something cooler as opposed to,
Yeah.
so that kind of a thing.
It's
And
it's
it just
much more
comes down to,
nuanced understanding between you and like an artist versus a more general view between say like an artist and like a salesperson. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And like being so close to the work also helps me on the business side tremendously because, I think there's this, I get it, but there's this world where a lot of studios, old or new, are like, yeah, I do 2D, I do 3D. How come I can't get in on that job? But the truth of it is that clients, especially the good ones, are much more attuned to stylistic nuances that are very present, very now, that know or reference said trend or artist somewhere that they want to recreate something. And so it involves being really, really close to both the art and the technology to have those conversations with jobs and with clients so that they know and trust that we know what we're talking about and we know what's up.
Yeah.
And because that and I don't just mean with like the Googles or the Apples. It comes up everywhere across the board. And it just involves staying really, really present with what's happening in our industry.
Who are some
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Who are some of your favorite people you follow or some of your favorite artists?
In fact, I was just messaging with her right before this. Vincent Schweig's, I adore
Mhm.
his work, and he's a great human. I'm trying to think of, you caught me off guard.
Sorry.
It's nothing to do with MoGraph, but I'm absolutely enamored with the visuals and the singer FK Twigs right now. Like,
Okay.
it's kind of like dark. It kind of goes into my like, but the alternate version, like my shadow emotionally of like just sort of like dark rave shit and dance and
Gotcha. All right. Yeah.
cinematography. I'm trying to think of who else has got my Not Real. I love.
Yeah. I love Not Real. Yeah.
Color and the Kids in Berlin are my favorites.
Mhm.
Like I adore their work, and they're also the nicest ever. Marcel from State Design is my best friend in the universe, and the only reason I get to even be here and do these talks and all that stuff. And I love the work that they're doing. They just did these. I don't know if it's out yet, but they just did these amazing, amazing, amazing titles for Graphica Manila just a couple of days ago. You guys will for 2D cell animation stuff. Your minds are going to be demolished.
I'll have to
There's
check that out.
so much.
Yeah. What?
I go down the list. I'll just go into my Instagram book. We could go out until 5 o'clock with all the.
What's a favorite project you've worked on?
Oh gosh, that's too.
Too generic?
No, it's not too generic at all. We really, it was a long time ago now, but the Simpsons projects was pretty fun. We did a bunch of crazy stuff there.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that because there's so much history behind that. You've got to make sure that like you're taking a well-known brand that I grew up with, that, also you've got to deal with the people who are my age who complain that The Simpsons was only good for the first 10 seasons,
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you balance that?
It's let's see, what can I say about that? It's no. It's everything you're saying is exactly right. It's very funny how the practicality of that exact question is what made it so weird and creative in the end, because they were like, hey, at the time, they were like, hey, there's been 20 seasons of Simpsons. There's certain expectations. There's a pretty critical eye on what the brand and the show is. How do you do something different? And then in a more practical level, they were like, hey, if we just show Simpsons animations, people are going to think that they're watching the show, but this is marketing, so
Yeah.
we don't want to make them know that they're not watching the show. So why don't we
Let me
just
see if I can
deconstruct it
bring
and take
this
things
up.
apart? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um, and then
oh boy.
ultimately, it's just a brand exercise of like, uh, you know, how do we make something weird and cool, but make it very quickly understood that it's The Simpsons?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
You know, and so that's really what we did. We just took illustrations from them, drew over them in Illustrator, and then broke them apart to make a bunch of weird stuff. I think what I liked about this project especially was that we were in a really, really, really tough, dark time at the
Uh
studio.
huh.
And we just kind of all broke and just said, fuck it, let's just get back to making rad, weird, experimental
Yeah.
shit. We did. The thing that I loved about that is there's always this pressure as a business owner or even as a freelancer or artist or anywhere with clients. Their budgets continually get smaller and
Mm-hmm.
smaller, deadlines, all that. And so within that becomes this push to just get it right and perfect on the first try, which
Mm-hmm.
is fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be able to make piles of shit and experiment and see what happy accidents and what weird surprises come out of it. And that one did that. We probably did, I gotta imagine, 200 or 300 design directions
Wow.
on that to get down to that. But it didn't feel like work. No one was pissed. It was like
Yeah.
just us and Illustrator just
Yeah.
letting it rip. And
And that's also how you grow,
yeah,
like it's great to have that experimentation and stuff like that while especially while getting paid to do a job. It's like, okay, this may hit the cutting room floor, but you know what I learned from this? I was able to pick up a new, skill set or something like that, you know?
I think that's always been the challenge, always will be the challenge, but also the North Star. I gotta talk to you about this. I'm gonna probably focus on this next week. Is just this whole idea of experimentation
Mm-hmm.
and just making piles of work, whether you're doing it for an art director or doing it for yourself, and not waiting for like, tell me exactly what to do. It's sort of like I'm working on this feature film project right now. This director, he's really, really tough,
Mm-hmm.
but he finally just he wasn't feeling heard. We weren't listening and hitting the notes the way he wanted to. And he said, look, this is the dynamic I want. And it's really stuck with me. He's like, do exactly what I'm telling you to do that I want. I know what I want, but I don't know if it's going to work or not, but do it. And then do as many surprise versions as you want that you're passionate about. And then let's talk about it. And it was just like that, like put it in a box of like how I
Yeah.
think for myself and for collaborations is like, yeah, do the plan, but let's just see what else is out there.
Yeah.
Like, and
Because at
who
least then
knows?
you're hitting the client's mark, but it's like, let's make this laundry, not just, what they
Yeah,
want.
let's just make it
Yeah.
what we don't know is out there. Like, and it does two things. It A, the client feels heard, and B, the client feels passion because you're still trying to see what else possibly could be there. And it's exciting for us as makers because we too are like, hey, like, what else could it be? Like, I could do version one, which they want, version two, version nine, blend them together into some Frankenstein scene, and
Yeah.
suddenly it's original because it's a mix of. Also, there's this whole thing too where like we tend to think we should do what we're being asked so that we don't seem like we're too good or too anything or
Yeah.
or just
You're
outright
too
not following the
pretentious to
notes.
do what they want. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like, how many times have we all thought, even like on personal projects, to do something where like this is gonna work, and then you do it and you see it in motion, and you're like, shit, that didn't work. Like,
Yeah.
but you're certain it
Yeah.
was. Like, so it never hurts to have more options because of that and more exploration.
That's good to have at least a client who understood that maybe the way that they wanted it wasn't going to work. It's almost like
Yeah,
you needed to prove him wrong or prove him right, but it's like that he was open to the idea of experimentation.
I needed to trust him.
Yeah.
That's what is what happened. He's a successful dude, and so it was like I needed to. Yeah, so it was just a cool lesson that came up recently, and I love it. It's like I felt like I learned a lot from it.
Yeah. 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 That's cool. How what I don't know. Y'all do talk to me about the rebrand that y'all just did, right?
Oh, that's very funny.
Yeah.
So it was the first time we rebranded in 10, 15 years, 12 years, something like that.
Uh-huh.
A lot of the time you see a lot of companies rebrand. They rebrand every year, and it's mainly for the aesthetic journey of it and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
We had a very funny problem where we just got bigger and it just became so much work to make sure that our logos and branding were formatted in the right way,
Yeah.
and they never were, and there was never enough the logos in the right place on the server and all that stuff.
Uh-huh.
So like, all right, let's organizationally rebrand, create templates for everything, just so that we don't have to, so we make less work for
Yeah.
ourselves. And that's how and then once we got into it, we worked with a branding team at Studio K with Stephen Keller, who's like literally just the best ever. He's like trusted. We work all the time together, and I just think he's incredible. And he came in and just laid down the law and took care of it for us and helped us find what we needed for ourselves. It was amazing.
I absolutely love the symbol, the laundry symbol. Oh, chef's kiss. You know, I absolutely love it because you know, like it's the clip, it's the bullet, the C-47, you know, in production, you
Yeah.
know, and it's like, you know, it's laundry, of course, you know, it's a laundry clip or whatever, but it has like that, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but like, you know, when I was in production, it was like laundry clips, they were, you know, clothespins, they were, you know, what you used for everything, for holding on lights and, you know, shims and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean we needed a logo very early on, and I wanted to make it a ice cream cone, and it made no sense for the name, so they were like clothespin it is, and so it just stuck.
Yeah, I dig it. I
Is
dig it a lot. You know, and I love that on the website on the rebrand that you guys actually went through and like did a whole like layout of the rebrand and like icon set and like what you're using. You know, you don't see that often with different companies. I don't know.
Well,
It's
what's
like
kind
you
of
take
amazing
pride in
about it.
that. You know, it's like we rebranded. We love this. You should love it too. You know.
Absolutely, and it was pretty. It was also pretty strategic too. I'm not gonna lie,
Uh,
because we love the details and we love having a reason for everything. And sometimes we just go purely on heart and instinct. In that case, it was a little bit of both. But by illustrating our process and putting it out there, we got several very good projects because of it that are like, oh, we love your rebrand. We want to do that for our brand, blah, 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 blah. And so here we are, just by making it and sharing it. And it's great. And I love that stuff. I love motion branding work and all that stuff. So I would say like that's kind of the biggest thing that I'm most passionate about right now is just this idea of making and sharing. I think that's the key ingredient for everybody, because
yeah.
it's you then find people that want to make the same things you're making. They see your stuff because you share it all the time. They trust you more, and it becomes less of a like, can you do it? Do you do MoGraph? What is
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
MoGraph? They'll
Yeah.
be like, oh, I saw that thing on LinkedIn and I saw the other 10 things like it. I want to, here's some money. I want to be part of that world visually. Here, put my logo on it. Like,
Yeah.
it sounds stupid, but it's like a way better dynamic than just waiting for someone to trust you on something, maybe.
And are y'all doing any laundry branded like personal projects or anything like that as well?
Oh, we have tons,
Yeah.
from show content to titles for conferences to experimentation, like technical experimentations. Where yeah, we have laundry labs where we have all kinds of things always cooking. AI mixed stuff.
Mm-hmm.
AR stuff for a while, and then we kind of just since they shut that all
Yeah.
down for the most part, now we're like, yeah, fuck it. But yeah, we heavily believe in the. It's funny. One of the other things with the rebrand was putting the technology side of ourselves forward, because that wasn't really super obvious for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But we do quite a bit of technology work behind the scenes. I'm trying to think of stuff like Winbush does a lot of this, like the Rococo character mocap stuff. On Unreal, we're doing a lot of incorporating it into our various
Mm-hmm.
workflows, and then a lot of like we do it. If you told me this a year ago, I would have laughed at you. But I would have laughed at myself. But we do a lot of out of home, like those 3D screen projections from like, like at Samsung or something. You see it from the right angle. It looks like the character comes out of the screen and over the lip of the.
Yeah,
A lot of out of home billboards like that.
that's cool.
We've been doing. Yeah, the team really likes it.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, those are fun, and it takes a very there are specific things that you have to do, like making sure that you don't break the planes, and you keep everything and stuff. It's really fun when you can pull it off right.
Yeah, it takes a lot more prep work than it looks.
Yeah,
And a lot of art.
yeah, for sure, for sure. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's been fun.
Talk to me about Laundry Labs. You mentioned that. Like,
yeah, so our CEO is incredible about company culture, and so we started Laundry Labs mainly because we understand, we think we understand something that a lot of artists, including ourselves, want to learn and experiment, but sometimes don't have the confidence or the discipline or imposter syndrome, all that stuff, which is nothing wrong, very, very understandable, and or time or sometimes project management abilities. So we were like, hey, why don't we make Laundry Lab so we can create some tiny bit of formal pushes to explore both in technology and art and video and styles, really. And so it came to fruition. And so usually we'll put together it, just like any client project, we'll put together a team with a coordinator, producer, and artists, and work on these various different things, whether it's a big team or a small team, and just sort of go at different parts of technologies. So like, or style. So like I have 2D teams that work on like maximalist illustration stuff, and we'll make that and put that on Instagram and see if it invites any projects, and often it does. Or we've done, I'm trying to think of like, we've done AR, VR stuff in that world. Like we did one, like an art gallery thing where we basically took Mixamo renders, ran them through models that we got on Turbo Squid, and then rendered it in spherically using Octane because we wanted to learn Octane a little bit better at the time, and then ran that through YouTube 360 to see what the limitations were on video posting that way.
okay.
So it's always just to answer one little question. Or this was a really, really cool one that I was actually one of my favorite projects, and it wasn't visually that dynamic from like a motion graphics perspective, but we were doing we were working on doing dynamic text animations that you could basically input, so the concept that we were trying to solve for was when you text message someone, the intonation is missed. Like I could say, Matt, hello, and it's like, hello, are you happy? Are you mad at me?
It's like it's like that Key and Peele skit where he's like, "You want some of this?" And he's like, "You want some of this?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So we built this crude app to try to see that mixed fonts, colors, and everything to see if we could add emotion to typography. We did some in Laundry Labs. We did some tests on it, and then Google came along and said, "Hey, we want to do that, but through Android and do it properly." And they created this basically emotional category rubric of different emotions to assign, and we worked with them and created this. I think it probably ended up being 40 or 50 emotions with sub emotions to it, and we did it all in After Effects, created a motion style algorithm, and they took it through JSON and incorporated it into the Android text message
That's
systems.
super cool. And
so
was that just like that wasn't necessarily something that you originally planned on selling to Google, or did they come to you wanting that?
No, it just
and they just
serendipitously
that's
we were
amazing.
working on it. They came to us and said, "Hey, we're thinking about doing something like this." And I'm like, "Oh, we're already doing something like that." We showed them some of our tests, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we want to take that and put it on steroids." And then they figured out the dev side of it, and they're like, "Oh, because of our system, we're going to use JSON and I think After Effects workflow and a little bit of Lottie," and then they did their magic at Google. And so that happens to us a lot, where like when we make something or try to make something, it tends to sort of hover around what other people want to make in some way, and it starts conversations that then go to stuff like that. So
Do you find
it's
you're
cool.
getting a lot of work from like Instagram posts and stuff like that? Where's a good majority of like even the corporate work coming from? Or is it just the relationships you've built over the years?
It's there's no one way.
Yeah.
So we Instagram, LinkedIn, we have sales reps in all three categories or territories in the U.S. Where our EPs and creative directors were tasked to reach out and connect with, I think, 10 clients a week. We're very, very robust on our sales side, and then a lot of it is just creative to creative relationships
Yeah.
that through work and just good vibes. So it never comes from any one area, and we hit all the areas pretty hard.
Yeah.
So that we can keep stuff coming. But a lot of it just comes down to like the Google thing, where it's just like we're just into something. We share it with clients, and sometimes they don't respond, or they don't have anything, and sometimes they do. We're also really like it's so we have some core clients that we love and work with all the time, and we definitely do projects too where like, hey, we're working on something that didn't go, or something came up that wasn't perfect. Like we
Yeah.
had this one project where it was a ton of language versioning, and we, being the designers that we are, there were a lot of typos. And so I was super like, I was like, I don't want bad vibes.
Yeah.
So we went in and figured out a recipe that basically connected Google Docs through a plugin in After Effects to After Effects files, so that we could put all of our typography in Google Docs, show the client, run Grammarly through it to make sure it was all grammatically correct, and then it would feed into After Effects and do all of our language versioning that got around
That's
any
cool.
spelling errors.
And
Yeah,
would it
and it was a
pull
total hack.
would it pull from like like an Excel file, or was it a like a
Both Excel or Google Docs.
amazing?
Yeah, and then we did a demo and showed the client that how to do it, because that was our solve, because we were upset for the fumbles, and it was just like respect. Like they were like,
Yeah.
no, and they didn't ask. We just do our postmortems on it. We're like, how can we improve upon that? And then it just kind of came like, we're like, let's try to see if we can proof it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
It's one of my favorite things anytime I'm interviewing. I always answer honestly when they say, what's your biggest fault, or what's your biggest, whatever. I say, I'm terrible at spelling. I'll probably have something happen to where I misspell something and no one will catch it.
Oh, I'm the worst. I'm I'm the guy that writes one sentence for what could be about 7 paragraphs with no commas or periods. And
if I didn't have right click and then give me the options, I hate it when I spell it so badly that I can't. The right click just doesn't work.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're in the same. So
that's funny.
but
Who do y'all have a marketing department, like specifically marketing for laundry, or is that who is in charge of like doing the Instagram posts and like doing kind of the hype stuff that is involved in promoting the studio?
it's a team effort. One of our AJ works with us, is in charge of our social media, but we strategize on it internally, and we use schedulers, but then we also post as well. And then we also have like our sales reps also help us with planning like sales trips and outreach and kind of all that. It's informal. Like it's like everybody else is doing their like assigned jobs, but we all kind of bring our minds together to push on it together as well.
That's cool.
We definitely think that our belief is that visibility helps create trust to get in to keep us kind of busier.
For sure.
So that's always our I mean, we have to not make crappy work, which is
I mean, that's number one.
but yeah, that goes without saying. But the other half of it is we try to just make sure that people see it. We kind of did the thing for a very long time where we're like, oh, the big ugly sales word. We don't want to seem like we're begging for attention. They should just know and find us, and that absolutely did not work. And so we've been doing a big push, not like from an ego, like look how great we are. We just do it, make it, share it, make it, share it.
Yeah.
Rinse and repeat. just because it's like, how else are they gonna find us?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things where you've got to stay top of mind. You know,
That's it. So
if people forget about you, you know, and some other person is on top of their mind, then it's like, oh no, I'm gonna go to this other studio.
I always tell this story. I've told it multiple times, and I have this client that I check in with like maybe every other month, and they never ever respond back to my emails. And no, and like, and it was after like 9 months, they called me for a project we worked on. I was like, and then we're friends. I was like, guys, I'm always sending you emails of cool shit, checking in,
Yeah.
like, what's up? Are we
Are we
mess
cool?
up? Yeah, are we cool? And they were like, oh no, we love it, and we look forward to it, and it reminds us and keeps you top of mind. We're just the type that unless we have a project, we're not going to respond because we're busy and we don't have time for the back and forth. But don't not send it, because it keeps you guys top of mind and you're always sharing interesting stuff that we like.
Yeah.
So just do that and just know that we see it and it's cool.
Yeah.
And you guys stand out because you check in even when we don't respond. And I was like, game on.
I like that.
Like,
I like that a lot.
so I email everybody now, and I don't care if they don't respond. I know they see it.
That's good. What's your background, PJ?
Like from what's that?
Like school, education, or none, and just got into it. What's your general background?
Yeah, so I grew up in Chinatown in San Francisco in the 90s as a graffiti artist.
Nice.
And,
okay.
Yeah. And then I went to art school and quickly learned that A, graffiti wasn't going to make a very high-paying career, and B, I was not as good of a painter as I thought in my little high school art class compared to some masters. So I got into graphic design and After Effects and 3D. And then my first job was with one of the partners at Pentagram, the branding studio in New York. And he is great, except that it was a very sobering lesson in vibes. Like they're very kind of like highbrow, like formal graphic design, which at the time I was just this like skater streetwear kid.
Yeah, it was different times back then. Yeah.
It did not work out.
Yeah.
And then in sort of licking my wounds from that, I found this motion graphics outfit out in California called Fuel. And those were like skater surfers, like just crazy graphics, maximalism, just weird, wild shit, and sort of found my people. And then worked in the industry a few years, all the big players here freelance, and then we started laundry shortly thereafter.
That's awesome. That's super cool.
Yeah.
And you can tell in the work that you post that you can see that graphic design background. I've always said graphic designers make the best motion designers because they've got the core elements that deal with that, you know?
Yeah, and it's like, I'm such an open book. Like my business partner Tony Liu comes from a film background, and so he brings sort of a cinema quality, a sense of camera work and flow, and I learned from that. And and so it's yeah, I know that design's my like foundation, but I'm just so obsessed with learning new stuff too that it's like, especially now with like Patreon and stuff, like holy fuck, like it's like, and of course like EJ and everybody with the tutorials and stuff, it's just like there's not enough hours or energy for me. I know, but there's just so many cool things to learn.
You hit 42 and it's just like, oh, I can't stay up past 10 o'clock anymore.
I know. I really want to be Neo in the Matrix and just like download it, like, because it's like there's just so much good shit.
If you were Neo in the Matrix and everyone could jack in and learn graphic design, what would be the thing that sets you apart? If everyone could do it, it goes back to the AI thing. You know,
it does. It also like YouTube's that like YouTube democratized video, but it just makes people get more creative, I think. And there's some, you gotta look for it, but there's gems.
Yeah. All right, PJ, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Where can people find you online, or if people want to contact you, or if people want to check out Laundry?
Easy, laundry.studio on our website, PJ_Richardson on Instagram, and just search us on LinkedIn. We don't.
There was one more thing I wanted to ask you about, because you've been doing the local meetups lately, right?
Oh yeah.
I would love to talk about that. Sorry, we're not over yet. Because, for me, I've been pushing, MoGraph has been pushing local meetups for a while, and with the launch of the new website and being able to add your own groups and stuff like that, I'm really happy when I see someone else in the industry really pushing meetups, Talk to me about it.
Yeah, the idea came from EJ doing them in Denver, and I was like, and then we have R&D in LA, which is amazing, and like the kind of general everything MoGraph. But I was actually, where this idea came from was Camp MoGraph, because I was vibing with so many 3D people, and I was like, shoot, I'm into 3D, you're into 3D. DMA LA was around in LA for a long time, but kind of tapered off, and I was like, let's do this. Let's get people together. And it took me a minute, because everybody I talked to, even our own team, was like, oh, we need to rent a space, and we need to get a DJ, and we need to get catering, and it's going to be $10,000 a night. And I was like, yeah. And then they would get mad at me when I was like, yeah, cool. All right, let's do it. And then, so we went full DIY on it and just got pizzas and beer and a mic and a screen.
It's the way to do it.
Yeah. And it's awesome. And it's just to get people together, because I think a lot of us are still working remotely, and it gets, kind of isolating. So it was like, let's just see what's up. It's kind of that simple.
Yeah. I appreciate that from one event person to another,
Yeah. Well, what I love about it actually is that when people get together with shared passions, there's a comfort and trust level to also have dialogue about things, including the meetup. And I've gotten so many interesting bits of feedback that it's like turning the dials on, on a radio or something. And we adjusted every time, formatting wise, to play to what it seems like will connect with the audience more. Like the first one was just a formal presentation. The second one with Winbush and EJ and Jess was more of a Q&A. And it just invited more people to talk and sort of express themselves with shared passions. I'm like, that's literally the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's just getting people together to vibe.
Yeah. And, people, there's a certain amount of intimacy when you have a shared common, interest. It's where like we've all experienced the ups and the downs and the same types of things. It's like when you become a parent and you can finally talk to other parents, and it's like, oh, okay, we get each other now. It's
I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, I didn't even think of that, but that is hugely what inspired me with this meetup thing, was not to get people together, probably first and foremost, right? But like having had the humble honor of going to a bunch of these conferences last year, that was the one thing that blew me away. Is like, you get someone up there that's like, yeah, show some cool shit in your story, fine, no problem, nothing wrong with that. But the people that got up there, especially badasses that were like, I struggled, this happened, or ran into this is how I solved it, whatever it might be, you're like, shit, it's not just me. And like, because we all think it's just ourselves that are struggling with something, and to see someone else didn't give you a magic button to fix your own shit, but it makes you feel tremendously better to know that other people are on that same tricky journey. And like, that was a humongous impetus for our meetup too, besides the get together part, was just being like, let's unearth how, this shit's hard.
Yeah,
it is. And it's like, how if we can make someone else feel better and help them push through their own stuff, like, man, like that's the goal.
Yeah, that's great.
So
and it's very different from like, say, just talking to my parents or talking to my wife about like, hey, this is kind of some crappy stuff that happened in, our industry or, whatever. And it's like, but if you and me are talking about it, it's like, oh yeah, we've got that connection. We're in the trenches together.
Yeah, the specifics and the nuances matter. That's what I'm saying. You tell your mom, your grandma, I'd be like, what is 3D? And you're like, but the Octane render license, you don't understand. Like, it's like, so.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, moral of the story, Start some more meetups. You know, if you've got a meetup group, and I say this all the time, if you've got a meetup group, hit me up, Matt@mograph.com, and let's help you get one set up. Also on the MoGraph site, we've got all the new meetup groups that you can either start or whatever. But okay, now this is the end. PJ, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Dude,
man,
so much. It's
I
an honor.
appreciate
I
it.
appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks to everyone for joining. Please make sure to follow us on all the socials, especially YouTube and Twitch. We started our weekly MoGraph Hangouts a few weeks ago, and we're having a lot of fun. Last week, we did magic eyes. We made magic eyes, you know, and it's great. It was so much fun. Thanks to Luis Miranda for showing us how to do it, because we were able to create like the MoGraph logo and like a magic eye. It was really cool. And super easy to do. Those are Thursday nights at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, and we've got a ton of fun guests coming up on the show in the coming weeks. I am taking a break on the 18th of March. That's spring break, so I'm going to be out. Then there's a couple dates in April. We'll be traveling to NAB. If you're going to NAB, make sure and hit me up. We're having the fifth annual, which is crazy, the 5th annual MoGraph karaoke party, you know, where we all sing karaoke, hosted by both MoGraph.com and iDesign. And then the next week I'll be at RenderCon. So if you're in the LA area, make sure and grab those tickets to RenderCon. That'll be fantastic. And if you haven't done it already, make sure you sign up for your very own MoGraph.com account. It's a one-stop shop for everything a motion designer needs. You can showcase your demo reel, projects you've worked on, post jobs, apply for jobs, sell your digital goods, find meetup groups, or start one of your own. So much more planned. We currently have we're almost at the 700 member mark, which is great. And we're growing every day. An artist first site where your work will always be yours and will never be fed to the AI machine. Stop feeding Zuck's AI machine and start posting on MoGraph.com. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming out and watching the show. And PJ, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. So
thank you, Matt, so much. Thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody that popped in.
Until next time, I'm Matt, and you are PJ.
PJ?
Yeah. All right, later, yo.
Everybody.
It's pretty good, I guess.